Hey, my name is Lenny B. I am a voiceover audio engineer, and I help creative people, whether they're doing voiceovers or performing or creating content. I help them make a stronger, more emotional connection with their audience. It's one of the things that I do. Now, what you're watching right now is, I guess they're calling it podcast, but it's a video, but it's also going to be part of a podcast where I'm having a one-on-one conversation with a client of mine. Her name is Julie OConnell. She's a beginning voiceover artist, and what we're doing is really starting from the beginning, and we're going to go all through getting her the ideal clients that she's looking for. And I believe this is episode number 4 today that we're going to be looking at. And, you know, we started in the previous episodes talking about her sound, her equipment. We got her set up with a processing preset for her voice, so it sounds really good. And as we progress, we're going to talk more about branding and marketing. And the conversations that we're going to be having really derive from my brand new marketing course, which is called Modern Synergy Marketing for Voiceover. And I'm going to put a link to that course in the description of the video here. But let's join now the conversation between me and Julie. First of all, how are you doing? And how is the home improvement project coming?
It's coming really well. The tiling is almost finished. It's very, very close. And now I am looking into building the wall, and I'm looking at wall materials and doors.
Wow, it's like a home improvement show over there. How many times have you been to the Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Since we spoke last, what we did is we put together a temporary custom processing preset for you to use in the closet, because you have moved your studio in a temporary location in a closed closet, and it sounded pretty good. So tell me about how that's going. Or is that all on pause, or are you recording with it? What are you doing with that?
I've had a couple of jobs. I've had a couple of projects.
Cool.
And I've used your presets, and they sound excellent.
What is it doing for you? Is it helping you not worry about it? Is it just sound better and makes it, you're more excited about it? What is it doing for you?
I would say all of the above. The clarity is improved tenfold, and I feel really confident about it when I'm sending the final product to the client.
Good.
So that helped a lot.
Good. Do you think that comes through in your recordings as well? Like, just the vibe is a little different?
I really liked this last one I did. I felt really good about it. We talked about mic placement as well. I improved on that, so I felt a lot more comfortable.
I mean, Julie, I think that confidence is huge, and it's attractive when people listen to that, and it makes you sound more accomplished and all of it. So that's really good. I love to hear that, and I'm glad that you have that now. And what about, because I know that you're into the processing. I know that you're into EQ and compression more than most people, which is cool. So I do want to dive into that a little bit. I'm sure you kind of looked under the hood. Did you look at the EQ curve that I made for you? And maybe we should talk about that a little bit.
I looked at everything you made in detail, and it looks like you did a lot of things that are much more complicated than I did on my original FX chain. Your EQ curve looks a lot different. Not a lot different from mine. It just looks more detailed. And I love it. And I want to know exactly what you did in every minute and every decision, why you did it. But I know that will come with time.
No, I think that may be a good thing to do, because your studio and your room is still being constructed. I think we could talk about that a little bit today.
Okay.
So why don't you pull that up, and we could both be looking at the same thing.
All right.
And then...
okay, I have it right here.
All right. So the first thing, when I'm looking at your EQ here, one of the major things that usually happens, it's kind of like the first go-to, is there's usually too much bass energy in every recording for voice. There's usually too much. Yeah, and it's only compounded by a closet or a space that is a little bit small, or that doesn't have a lot of absorption. There's reflections, so it's kind of compounded. But even if you're in a totally professional, like in my room, I've got panels all over the place, and they're thick rock wool, 4 or 5 inch thick bass traps all over, even on the ceiling above me. I still will take that bass down to
All right.
balance it out. Yeah, so that's something that just generally happens. We'll start on the left side here. You'll notice that I kind of have a gentle curve on the first high pass filter.
Yes.
And the reason why you don't want to have it too steep, because that could cause phase issues. So you want kind of a gentle curve. Then you can see 1 and 2 are just resonances that I've found that in your particular space. And then what I'll do is you've probably seen me raise it up too high and make it a thin Q, and then kind of find where it is.
Yes,
but then
I've modeled myself after that too.
Yeah, it's a great technique. Find where the loudest resonance or that really overly abundant frequency space is, and then it moves to your ear. I think it moves to like widening or make it skinnier, how much or up or down, knowing that the final goal and the thing that you always want to do is balance. So you want to make sure that the low frequencies, the mid frequencies, and the high frequencies are all giving you the same amount of energy. That's really what you're looking for in your first parametric EQ.
Wonderful.
And then, 3 and 5, those two bands are a little wider.
Yes.
And they're really to kind of push some energy down. And that's you've got a very strong, you just got a strong mid-range presence. You've got a powerful voice, which is a great thing. But I want to make sure that mid-range and that power isn't overpowering all the other frequencies, because I want a nice smooth. Okay. Some people are the opposite. Some rooms make it the opposite, to where there's lots of bass, lots of highs, and then there's no meat in the middle there. But you've got this robust kind of thing going on, which is great. And then you also, and believe me, these aren't problems. It's just a style, and it's just the sound and how it works. Band 4 is a resonance, a harsh type of a higher mid resonance that you have in your voice. And that's due to the structure of how your mouth is, your nose cavity. It's all that physics and the way the sounds travel, and the way you grew up speaking a certain way. It's just all that compounded. So there was a high energy in that. What is that? 4 looks like, it's about 1800 hertz.
Yes.
And so it looks weird. It's like, whoa, that would be kind of strange. Like, now there's a deficit in that area, but all I'm doing is really making it so it's equal to everything else.
All right.
And I will tell you that sometimes some voices only have a resonance when it's louder. So in a particular frequency range. Okay. And that's where maybe you would use a dynamic band, and the F6 can do that. And I try not to do too much dynamic EQing unless there's really an issue. I'll lean on that. You know how that kind of works?
No, I was just going to ask you, what does that mean?
So basically that means you can add a compressor to that band. Ooh. So the F6, it's quite complicated. You've got 6 bands, but you've also got 6 compressors.
Yes, because I see the attack and release.
Exactly. So what you could do is you could say, all right, in this band, when the volume gets to this level threshold, it'll start dipping it down even more, and how much, and you could set the range, how deep it goes down. And that's good. So, you could set some of the higher ones as de-essers. So it's like, hey, when that sibilance hits in this frequency space, it'll dynamically move. It's quite beautiful. Like, you would never be able to do that fast enough. It's all automated. You know what I mean? It's kind of a cool machine. And, but yeah, do you, are there any things that you thought, wow, why did you do that? And
No, I didn't. The areas where you pulled it down, where you attenuated, is that the right word for that?
Oh my God, you sound like a producer.
Those are the same spots I was attenuating them as well.
Okay, good. So your ear was hearing the issues.
And now I know why, because I don't know why I didn't look at that. There's the threshold, attack, and release for each band.
Yeah. And then also understand that when we move back to your new studio space, those may shift a little bit. They'll
Right.
probably be generally in the same, because you're still speaking directly, close to the microphone, but the room may play a role a little bit. So we may, massage. It's going to be similar, but not exactly the same.
All right.
Cool. All right. And then, so did you, and if you didn't, it's okay. I would have done this because I'm a nerd and I love the EQ and compression. Did you listen to just the EQ without the Scheps to turn it on and off? Did you try that?
I didn't do that. I
It's
did
okay.
do the AB with the whole thing, and I was blown
right.
away.
Yeah, it's really
I don't know
different.
why I didn't think to do that, because that does sound like something I would do as well.
Give it a shot when you get a chance. Just turn it on and off so you could see, and the reason why I want you to do that is you could see, okay, I see how much work the EQ is doing first before I go into the second, the Scheps Omni Channel. And I always think that it's amazing that just 2 plugins, but you could see there's a lot going on. But
Yes.
in 2 plugins is really all you need to make a huge difference for the voice.
Well, the Scheps has so many features. I mean, it's a lot of different effects in one.
It is. Let me pull that up. And
all right, I want to.
Tell me if you have any questions just about what I've done, why, or what something does.
I guess the only one I didn't know that I didn't understand was the pre, what it said odd. I didn't understand what was going on with that very first one on the left.
So, when you have a preamp that offers saturation, yes, the pre is so it's a preamplifier. This is modeling the sound of a preamp like a 1073, like a Neve, ones that you could drive a little bit and get a little saturation from. It's really modeling that. So if you're using just a regular Focusrite or whatever your interface is, those are clean preamps, and then you're able to, with the plugin, add some of that saturation that an expensive, just to get some of that vibe and that sound. So there's even harmonics. That's what that's for. Odd harmonics, and then heavy, I think, is both. It's just like lots and lots of saturation.
All right.
And each one has the range of how much saturation you could put on it. Even harmonics tends to have a nice, warm, round kind of a sound. And Julie, you can't, your preset is saved, and so you could spin the knobs, turn them all the way. You're not going to break anything.
Right.
Crank up the odd all the way, crank up the even all the way, and hear what the difference is so you can feel the vibe. Even has a soft, warm, round, bassy kind of a feel when you crank up the saturation.
Okay.
And when you turn it up really high, you'll start hearing some distortion, but putting it 15, 20, 30% just gives you that thickness that a saturation that does. Odd harmonics tend to have a little more of a bite. And when you add odd harmonics, it gives it a little bit more high-end texture, and kind of some of that breathy grit comes out a little hotter.
All right.
And I think you've got a powerful low and mid end. I didn't need to add saturation, but I wanted to add a little bite on the top. And again, these are all, it's paintbrushes, right? These are all, yes. I tried both and I wanted to see which ones. I tried it all the way. I turned it up too high, backed it, so you're painting with it. And I just arrived at the setting that I did, which is usually similar. They're in the neighborhood for everybody, but you want to hear what the difference is, and came up with that setting for your voice. I think your meditation sounds awesome. I really like the way it came out. The meditation preset. I
really love my presets. I love them.
Cool. I used just one of the de-essers and not too much for you. You could see the tone in the EQ section.
Yes.
Not too much highs, didn't need, and additionally, we're using some of that odd saturation to push the highs up a little bit too. So I didn't really use it in the EQ.
Okay, because in one of my old FX chains, I did want to raise the highs a little bit in the 1,000 range, or in the maybe 1,500.
You could absolutely modify it, and you also I want you to
working on that already.
Yeah, no. I want you to also consider that when you work with me, what you're also investing in is the ears the equipment that I have. So I want you to just put it in perspective here. I'm playing it on my probably too expensive speakers in my too expensive treated room. And so you're investing in some of that when you buy a preset for me. So I'm playing it back on my good stuff and it sounds balanced. So we're getting a second reference, because if you're in one room that's untreated, when you play it back, it's going to sound different from when you're in a treated room versus stereo speakers versus listening to it on your phone. We want to get a reference. So I try and put a lot of energy and invest a lot of money in getting a really balanced sound in my room so I could share that with you. So it's okay. I just want you to understand, you may feel like you want to crank it up, but just take note that what I've sent you and what I've done is balanced in my room. And so it may not need extra this or less whatever.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Your presets boosted where I was trying to make up for it in my old presets.
Gotcha.
Like I didn't need to touch it. You did exactly. I want it to sound more bright.
Yes.
And you did that. This is perfect.
Gotcha. So you're saying in reference to some of the old settings that you have.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's really the bottom line when I'm the drive that I do when I create a sound and when I try to get something that I think sounds good is I want to make sure that you connect on an emotional level. It's clear, it's crisp, and I really want you to have that leverage. And I think you feel that. I want to talk about that a little bit to where you can just get close to the mic. You don't have to project. I know we spoke about this in the last couple episodes, and I want to ask you how that's coming. And let me just kind of reset real quick. One of the things that the compression and the preset allows you to do is you don't have to project. And I think that was one of the things because of your stage experience, because of your experience projecting to a live audience, you were pushing. And I felt that you were pushing, but what you end up doing is you rob yourself of the natural dynamics to leaning in. So, and the preset is built to give you all of that room and that power to be totally quiet if you want, but it still sounds loud on the recording. So tell me how that's coming and all of that.
All right. My very last client, which was yesterday, this was the first time I actually put that to practice.
Oh, good.
Instead of, saying things, instead of presenting everything loudly, I wasn't. And instead of projecting, I wasn't projecting. And man, did it sound good. So I've only had one experience with it so far.
Good. But you felt the power of it and you're able to, it gives you much more leverage. It's like when you're in your Jeep and you're just hitting the first two gears. I mean, you got a lot more to go.
Right.
I know you're a Jeep fan. I know that's why I said that. That's great. That's really, really good. And it's also, I think one of the things that's really surprising is you realize, holy crap, a microphone in general is powerful. Like it's very sensitive. And by getting the gain and the structure and the compressor to work in the sweet spot, it picks up like the spit between your teeth,
Yes.
right? You really hear everything.
Yes.
And that's the power to really project a facial expression through the microphones. Like people can hear that you're smiling. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. I like that I think that's going to raise your game a lot and just doing what you're doing. So
I feel it already. And I'm just in the closet so far.
Good. Oh, it's going to be great. And your room is going to be great. You had a great sound before, so I can't imagine now just kind of rethinking it. And we've talked about acoustics and stuff like that. So what I'd like, any other questions about levels or mastering or using the preset in context now when you send somebody a file?
The only other question I have at this point about all of this is we had discussed what volume I should be, what's a safe volume to send to a client when I don't know where it's going to be uploaded, or I don't know what it's going to be used for necessarily.
So here's what I just generally do. It's great question. I think when and it depends on the stage that you're at. And these are all, I like to think of them as selling stages, right? If somebody says, hey, I'm interested in, having your voice, or you're working on a platform and they send a script, I just want to hear what you sound like on the script, I would send it to them loud, and I would send it to them bold, and it doesn't matter where it's going. Just make sure that what you're presenting is like the best. You want to punch them in the face, right? You want to blow them away right away. I mean, that's what you want to do. And you want to sound better than anybody else they're considering. So in that situation, I'll back up. Make sure you get your recording level correct, like we talked about, as loud as you can, but never peaking over -6. I've got blog posts and stuff on the website about that, but I know you're well versed on that. Then that sets you up to hit the sweet spot for the plugins in the right direction. You use your gain to get the proper level, but then you could fine tune it in the DAW with a gain afterwards.
Yeah.
Man, this is all good stuff that I know you're digesting, and I think you're being armed with some great info. So then what I would do is use a limiter after to get it to where, and this is what I would do. If you're not worried yet about the luffs and where it's going, and a loudness target. So if you don't have a number, but you just want to send it to them, I say, slap a limiter on your master bus. And just get 1 to 2 dB of reduction on a hard limiter with the threshold at like -1.3.
All right.
Let me recap that. So I'm telling the limiter, hey, nothing should be louder than -1.3 decibels. I want that buffer above 0. And then I'm just going to raise the gain or lower the threshold depending upon what limiter you're using. Just so when you play back your voice, you're seeing on the meter that it's just getting 1 to 2, 3 maybe, and that's going to be plenty loud. I can probably tell you that it's going to be a lot louder than anybody else who's not doing this, and it's going to retain the sonics of the preset, and you'll blow them away. And if you make an MP3 file, that buffer will come in handy, because going from a lossless to a compressed file, when I say compressed, I mean data compressed. So like an MP3.
Yes.
I know we dove into that a little bit last time. That's where that buffer comes in. So you're going to make sure. And then always, I will tell you this because I've screwed this up a bunch of times. Do all these things, get good at it, but always listen to it before you push send, because I'm giving you guidelines, but maybe it peaks on one little thing and it distorts, so always review it. I always read my emails like 3 times before I push send, and still I've regretted it before, it's the same thing. Yeah. So, I think that's the best way to work with a client. So, okay, so that's if you have no target. I say open communication is the best. Don't feel embarrassed to ask. I would say, hey, by the way, and you could even make it sound big. You could even go, I have a wide variety of clients and they all like different kind of loudness standards. So I want to make sure I get what you want. Where's this going? What would you prefer? I can do multiple ones. Do you want it at -18 LUFS because it's going to be on TV? You could even put a menu together, whatever you want. I say over communicate, and so here's the key. And this is what I've found. This is valuable. I've learned this after working in media and radio and broadcast. People, I shouldn't say this. I have a right now. I have a filter that's saying not to say this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. In general, people are busy and lazy. Okay. The more work you can do for somebody, the more turnkey you can make it. And I'm talking about people in general in a busy work environment.
Sure.
So why don't you put it that way? I don't say all people are lazy. What I'm saying is everybody's busy. The more turnkey you could make it, and if you could say, hey, I found this works the best. I can give you any. Tell me what. If you ask them, say, hey, tell me which location this is going to, and I'll tell you which LUFS I think is if you could do more work for them, and it's turnkey, and they go, oh, I love working with Julie. She takes care of everything. You're going to have that.
I love that idea.
There are opportunities like that all the time, and I'll give you an example from radio. And this is how I learned this, and I want you to, because this helps. These little things add up. You win the game in the inches, if in the football game, right? It's the little things that add up, and I think this helps build a clientele. This is a great. It's a great thing that I've learned, and it totally works. I remember one of my jobs when I was producing a pretty. They were a big deal in San Diego at the time. A morning show. This is
Okay.
a couple years ago. We used to get big interviews all the time, and we interviewed Tom Cruise. We interviewed people. Would be
Yeah.
on the phone. They would call. We get all the time.
Okay.
But it was because of my connections, and it was because I knew all the publicists, and I knew what movies were coming out ahead of time, and I knew that they were trying to publicize a particular book or whatever that was coming out. I had all the connections. I knew what was going on. But when I would say, hey, we'd love to speak to Tom Cruise, or we'd love to get them on the show, we'd have them call. I would put, here's a hotline, here's the backup number. If for some reason you can't get in, or if they're going to be in town, I would say, here's a car rental place. Here's 3 of the hotels that we use. If you say this person's name, you can get 10%. If they're going to be in town, we can come and pick you up. I did all of the footwork for them because those publicists, they have to get publicity for their guy or gal for whatever project it is. And really, I understood that they need to go back to their managers and say, we did this in this city. So if I can already ahead of time do that, they were like, oh, so then what would happen is the next celebrity would come down and they'd be like, well, let's call Lenny because he'll take care of everything. So
That's awesome.
it's the same vibe. The more you can do for a client, the more you could say, hey, I'll send you a raw file. I could send you a processed one, or just do it. Hey, here's the links. Here's everything you would possibly need. Don't hesitate to call me. I'll answer immediately. If you overserve, you're going to be the go-to, and they're going to, because you may not be the exact voice for a particular project, but if you're easier to work with, they're going to want to do it because they got to turn the wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think that once I realized that and tried, and also I think it's part of my personality. I want everybody to like me. That's just part of who I am. It's the truth. As a Libra or whatever, I love the pet. I love that. And if people go, oh, well, Lenny's the guy.
Oh, I hear that.
It makes me work harder. It really does make me work harder. So that's just kind of my personality. You can relate to that?
Oh, a lot. Yes.
Yeah,
extremely.
It's a Libra thing. I don't know what it is, but it's what it is. Okay, so that's really good about the levels. So just to wrap up that last kind of concept and idea is communicate, over deliver, and I think that's the right answer. And don't be afraid, because they may not know either. They may be like, oh, I don't know what. You know what I mean?
Right.
Depends on who you're working with. And especially in the beginning, they're not going to know either. So you can say, here, this is what I usually do. Okay. Tell me if you want something different. So
I have a question for you. The limiter still lets once in a while, still lets a clip come through.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's normal behavior?
Doesn't that suck? Yeah. Well, I think you'll notice... okay, so let's back up, because it's a great concept and a point. There are plugins that'll probably be better than others. There's ones that are sold as brick wall limiters, and what happens is it's basically a compressor with a better attack time, or some of them have look ahead times, which you'll see that, which means actually they're looking ahead at the sample that's coming to the playhead or whatever you want to, and they'll anticipate it and they'll lower it and do some, automation stuff. But it's really, what they're trying to do, when we think about it, it's pretty incredible. They're hearing a sample come through that's way too loud, and it's pushing that down and making it sound smooth, so you really don't hear the difference, right? It's just got this cap on it. And it's really all about how the plugins work. And I will tell you that a limiter, or a soft clipper, is also called a soft clipper, the way they clip the tops, are really part of music production. And a limiter, a hardware unit limiter, can give a little edgy grit to a drum set, or a guitar part, or a percussion instrument, and it really caps the volume, but it gives a little crunch. It's kind of another way to get a saturation sound. So that clipping is saturation. But understand that's kind of where that comes from. The new generation, or the new way of using a limiter to get louder, is plugins that have special, mathematics under the hood that really try to get you louder without sounding clipped.
Okay.
But sometimes some of those peaks come through. So it really all depends on the limiter. Some are better at being completely brick wall than others, but it's because I think the sound is what they're going after first. I'll,
That makes
I'll,
sense.
yeah, I'll tell you this way. If you have, this is what I love to do because it helps me understand it. So I'll grab a limiter and I'll just download or put an MP3, like a song in, okay? And then you put a limiter on a song and squish it really hard
Okay.
and start hitting the limiter too much and have it, and then
Meaning the threshold?
yeah, or the ceiling, push the ceiling down
Yeah.
so it's really clipping the limiter, and then raise the volume and balance out the volume and turn it on and turn it off and hear the sound difference. It gives it a sound when you're just clipping the top off, and then you start pushing it even further and further, and then raise the volume up so you turn it on and turn it off. It's the same volume, but you're clipping or you're limiting the audio.
All
The
right.
way that the peaks of the audio are interacting with that circuit will give it a sound. And it's good to do on a full song because it's using all of the high, mids, and lows frequencies with the drums and the guitar and the bass and and the piano and all that stuff. You'll hear a sound. It gives it a sound.
Okay, interesting.
Which is a paintbrush that's used in music production. Some people will be, I like to put the bass through a thick compressor, add this EQ, and then I hit it with a clipper and it gives it that grit. It gives it that baseline grit. So, that's where it comes from. And we're using it in a mastering situation where we're just using it. We want it to be transparent, but use it to raise up that volume. So I know that's a long discussion and an explanation, but that's why it's doing it that way, and they're going to be different. Each limiter will be different.
Interesting.
Yeah. The more so there's more expensive ones that are made. When you start looking at different software, like some of the FabFilter ones are kind of expensive. That limiter is fantastic, but it has different circuits. It's got clean, it's got an opto circuit, it's got different styles, and their compressors are like that too, where it will offer, hey, this one you're going to use if you're just trying to get it loud and you don't want it to sound any different. This one, I'm going to give it a little vibe, but because
okay,
you know what I mean. It's also a lot of these plugins. They're not designed for voiceover. They're really designed for music, and we're using them for voiceover.
Okay, that's right. I didn't really think of that before, but that completely makes sense.
I'm not afraid to go deep on this stuff with you because I know you're into the EQ and all that stuff, and you're a production person. So, that was a little bit deeper than you really need to know. I think for maybe somebody listening in, but I know you kind of are into that stuff. So
very much so.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about so the preset you feel good with. Any other parts? Was there anything strange about using it in the room? Like the levels worked out okay when you sent it out? And did you have any kind of hurdles using the preset sending to this client?
I did not. I mean, it just sounded so clean. Actually, I think I sent you, but back to back, the same commercial with my old effects chain before you made my presets, and then with yours, and they sound pretty different.
It's kind of day and night.
I thought mine sounded awesome until I heard yours.
It's
Actually,
okay.
I didn't. I wasn't satisfied with it. What am I saying?
The whole idea, if and I want to reset because there's some people that don't know. One of the things that I do is offer a custom processing setting. And so I go through, you send me a raw file, and we're doing this temporarily right now for your closet because you're having your other studio kind of revamped and some changes because of the Great Flood of 2023.
Great Flood.
And so what I want to do is I give you the confidence, give you the sound, and it's, I double check everything on my equipment so you've got a good sound. Gives you the confidence. So I'm glad. And did we get the deal? Have we closed this yet? They're in this client?
Oh, yeah.
Are they happy? Oh, it's good.
It's done. It's paid for. It's delivered. It's finished.
Awesome. That's great news. I'm glad.
They were in Italy, so that was cool.
That's awesome. How cool is that, right? We can just work from all over the place.
I did want to ask you this, and I know you don't want to give me an exact number, but when I do the limiting that you spoke of earlier in this conversation to send a sample to the client to be the loudest, essentially loudest. What number would come up on Uline
Oh, I see.
approximately?
On an LUFS meter?
Yeah.
Well, I can't give you an exact
Or
number.
maybe a ballpark. I don't need an exact number, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
what's
it's
too
because
loud? What's too quiet? I guess that's what my question is on that particular
yeah,
subject.
it's not a factor of the number. It's not a factor of the LUFS. It's a factor of how good it sounds without robbing it of the dynamics, how loud you can get it. So instead of using the LUFS number, because that's
I
only
know
a
I look at
target.
that all the time, and
Yeah,
you
it's not.
know,
It's arbitrary because I'll tell you why. Is because a higher compressed piece of audio into a limiter, getting 1 to 2 dB of reduction is going to give you a higher LUFS than a less compressed piece of audio going to the limiter into a limiter at the same. It all depends on how thick, how the frequencies. Everyone's going to be totally different. Every piece of audio is going to be totally different. So what I'm thinking is
good to
I'm looking
know.
more at the reduction, how hard we're hitting that threshold of the limiter,
Yes.
because the harder you hit it, the more it's going to affect the sound minimally. But so I'm just thinking if you could press it up that much to where you're getting 1 to 2 dB of reduction, that should be your gauge if you don't have a target for LUFS.
All right. That's good information. That's been something that's perplexed me since the beginning.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's just a measurement to be completely exact, and it's because LUFS is a perceived loudness,
Perceived
and
loudness.
it's based on how human hearing works,
Yeah.
and really what the platforms like YouTube or Netflix or wherever your audio may be going, or radio or TV or whatever, they just want it to all kind of be the same, and they want it uniform from one piece
Right.
of audio to the other. So basically what you're doing when you reach their LUFS, you're just matching all their other audio on that platform. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's not something that's an ideal target, is what you're saying. It's
No,
their
ideal
target
is,
to match everybody else's.
yeah, I think ideal is just enough compression that I've given you in my preset, and just enough limiting to take 1 to 2 dB off. So what I'm doing is we're still retaining the dynamic range that sounds not too compressed or overly broadcast. There's something called listening fatigue. If something is over compressed, and it's just like we talked about your range, right? When you can get louder and softer. Something is only soft if it's next to something that's quiet. Something is only loud if it's next to something quiet. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, the first one didn't make sense. Something is only loud if it's next to something quiet. Something is only quiet if it's next to something loud.
Yeah.
It's relative. So if you take out all the dynamics and you smush it with a compression and a limiter just to get it louder, it's people actually tune out. It actually it makes you uninterested because it just sounds like a shh, a
Okay.
noise. Because I'll tell you, and I'll give you an example. If you talk, if you're at the mall, if you're at the supermarket with somebody, and you meet somebody, I mean, try this. It totally works. You go, hey, I really think and people they'll go, what? They'll if you say something under your breath, they'll actually come closer physically. They'll come closer to you. Wait, I'm sorry, what? Right? So you have the power to draw them in, so we don't want to lose those dynamics. You know what I mean? That's just it's evolution. It's evolutionary. People, huh? What? The pull, you get pulled in.
Okay.
By being quiet. So there's that part. You don't want to lose that. And
Right.
if everything is smushed, totally compressed to where it's just like a brick wall steady, then that's kind of out the window.
And that's where the fatigue comes in. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that what I want to do is, I think what the next thing we should do is start looking at, start looking at your website, your plans of how to market. We should talk about your ideal clients, what you want to do.
All right.
Getting some specific clients and specific goals, and then putting marketing pieces together start attracting those exact people. And that's what the marketing course is all about. So I think what we're going to do in the next episode, if you're ready, we'll maybe take a chapter at a time or a couple at a time.
All right.
I'll send them to you, or you get access. You have access to the course, and you just have to promise me you won't go ahead until we have the discussion.
I promise. I'll do what you say. You're the teacher.
All right. No. I think it's going to be fun. And I think you're a fantastic example. You're primed for learning all these things. And I can't wait to just watch this climb and to see how, you're going to draw people right to you with your examples and your great SEO and your descriptions and your bio and your demos. And we're going to go after exactly who you want to do. Well, that's good. It's good. Got your sound. We got your sound right. We're going to make sure your examples are right. We're going to start doing and creating online promos, online marketing pieces, really, that are designed to be sticky and to attract the exact type of client that you want to work with. So, coming up with putting your someday I want to do this out into the universe. We have to identify what that is first, which I know we're starting to work on, and which you did a little bit with a bio course, but we go deeper with a marketing course. Figuring out what that goal is and what those specifics are, then we start building. We slowly build marketing pieces, and they start coming.
Yay.
Cool.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, good. This is great. So, Julie, tell me this as we end up here. Are you, so this is the 4th episode we've done so far. We're going to continue to do this. I'm going to keep walking you through not only getting your sound right, helping you with your room, answering your production questions, and making sure you got everything you need to the tools as far as your studio goes and equipment. But then moving into the marketing to try to get you the business that you want to get. And now, first of all, I appreciate you being open to do this online. Have you been following some of the comments are great. People seem to love you, and are you okay with people reaching out and maybe asking you questions?
Absolutely.
So I know we've got your website. Is that the best way to kind of contact you? Probably through the website. Why don't you tell us how to get to you if somebody wants to just give you props or become fans or just follow what you're doing, or I don't know if you got an Instagram account or what. Tell me what you're doing.
I have Instagram. I have a Facebook business account. I'm on LinkedIn, and then my website's choosejuliesvoice.com.
Cool.
And you can just email me from there for sure.
Can you send me the audio you just did for your Italian client? Can we play that?
Sure.
Why don't you ramp it up for me? Tell me just a little bit about what it is, and then we'll play it at the end of this episode here. What was the client for? What did they ask for?
Shy. I don't know if I want.
Well.
Okay. Just after you said, how do you feel about everybody watching this? And then suddenly you're like, play your stuff. I'm like, ugh. Well, the funny thing is, I was telling my mom last night, I said, when I'm doing a project, sometimes I'm listening to it back as I'm editing it and doing everything. I'll be like, oh, this is good. And then the same minute, a few minutes later, I'll say, oh, this is no good. And then I'll listen to it again right before I'm going to send it. And I'm like, okay, this is good. And then after I send it, I'll listen to it again. Oh, that was no good. So I'm having a little bit of a battle with feeling like I'm doing a great job. So maybe that's why I feel shy about.
Well, that is so legit and so real. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you to kind of look inside yourself here for a second. What do you need as an ego? What do you need as a little sensitive, little young Julie? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Your innocent little ego and brain. What do you need to feel confident? What approval do you need? Because I'm curious, and that's important because we have to identify what that is. What is it? Right. What would make it? Is it making $1,000 for a voiceover that you do? Is it having a lot of work? What is it that would make you feel not to have that insecurity anymore?
I wonder. That's another one I'm going to have to think about.
Okay, and
because all of my clients rave and love it. So obviously that's not doing it for me because I'm like, this, that's not good enough. I
I
mean,
don't. Yeah, I don't know if it ever goes away. I
I was
think
just
I
going to say
think
that.
there's
Maybe it doesn't.
I think celebrities that walk onto a stage, and I think of like U2, the band, and they play 15 nights at a sold out stadium, and people just go nuts, and they stand, and they can't. The guy could, trip and fall, and they would cheer on stage. It's. I don't know if that ever goes away, and I'm sure they
Okay.
probably they. My point is, they probably still have. They may not show it, but I think
I think
everybody
they're
kind of has that
conditioned.
insecurity. But all you can do is commiserate with other professionals and
Yeah.
review it. And also, um, I've found that having the mindset that just being humble, I guess, when you walk into it. And if somebody were to say, "Hey, this, did you check this or whatever?" I would go, "Oh, actually, no, no. Tell me, did you hear something?" Being not having the mindset that like, okay, this is perfect, so you won't get caught that way. If you're always humble, but at the same time, you can't let somebody say that it's wrong if it's not either, too. So it's
Yeah, for me the somebody is myself, and it's just interesting how I can go back and forth from thinking it sounds pretty awesome to thinking, "Oh, this is no good." I mean, it goes back and
I
forth
get it, I get it.
quickly.
Well, let me ask you this, and this will be enough for the topic. This is just good because
But
I
I
think a
will
lot of
send
a
you
lot of
I mean,
people.
I'm open to send it to you. I will. I would
Okay, yeah,
love
yeah.
your opinion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you it only to kind of increase and get better. But let me ask you this about that feeling that you have to where it's like, it's so good. And then I don't know, it's really not that good. I get it. I totally understand it. What's the worst that could happen? What if you put it out there, you think it's good and it doesn't sound right, or you forgot something? What would be the worst that would happen?
You're right. There's not anything that worse because if my client, I tell them multiple times, every single client, I say, I want this to be exactly just right for you. I will,
Yeah,
I say that's imperative to me
yeah,
that you love this and that you're thrilled with this.
yes.
And I'm open to
Especially,
re-record it anytime anyone would ask me to if they
right,
would.
right. And it
Been
could
a
say,
very small amount of people have said, "Oh, can I get the tone a little different?" But no one ever says, "Oh, that's no good."
right, 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 right. They're not going to. They won't do that. And also, if you, I think you could ramp it up that way, or you could at least say, "Hey, this is my interpretation of what I think you want, but I'm open to adjusting. Just please let me know."
Good
You know
sentence.
what I mean? So you're kind of putting a buffer in there yourself when you're dealing, which is just customer relations and stuff. You leave yourself a little space to like, hey, if this isn't exactly what you want,
That's
I'll be happy to work on it further to get it to what you want. This way, I mean, take a little pressure off yourself though too. But I
and
get
you're
it.
right when
That's
you say there's what's the worst that can happen? Nothing that terrible. It really isn't.
just have it do it again. I know you want it. You're at the beginning of the career. You want to impress everybody. You don't want them to know that you can't do it. You want them to know that you could always do better. And that's just part of your personality. And I think an artist is like that. This is all very common artist stuff.
Okay.
But confidence is attractive. And also doing the stuff, and we talked about this a little bit before, doing the type of voiceover that you know you're good at and that you want to do also makes you feel naturally a little more confident. If you were to do um, if you were to do a voiceover about the details and mechanics of electronic, whatever, I don't, you know what I mean? That's not your thing. Yeah, I would feel a little bit insecure about that. But if you're doing meditation, or if you're talking about Jeeps, if you're talking about the stuff that you know and you love, that you're passionate about, that also helps too. And that's where we're going to go. I think you should
Okay.
stay in your lane, and that'll kind of help things as well too.
I
All
love
right,
it.
Ramp, tell me about this client. What are we going to listen to? How did you handle it? What did you deliver to them? Give me a little background. Ramp this clip up, and then we'll play it on the
Okay.
way out.
This gentleman hired me to record 5 short scripts of a website that he is trying to sell GPS trackers for your car that they're backed up with their guarantee that if the car gets stolen, it'll be found within 30 days or they'll give you a specific amount of money to get a new car or they'll get you a rental car. Like it's a full service GPS tracker.
Nope.
Kind of sounds like specifically for if your car gets stolen.
Yeah, right. And now you said this is an Italian client. Does this work on Fiats or any other cars?
I'm
Is it
not
only
sure.
it's
I don't
only
know.
Fiats? Oh no. How did you find this client?
Upwork.
Okay, cool. All right, Upwork. So you did all five. You send them to him, and then let me play one of the five, and just
Okay.
pick one of them. What are we?
And
What is?
he also wanted a few different takes of his brand logo that would go with his animation at the end of the video.
Cool.
So I had to say if in a few different tones, I was trying to make them all sound different from each other. Just the name of the company.
Okay. Cool. All right, we're gonna play it. I can't wait to hear. And this was the first paid client success that you used the custom preset on.
Yes.
All right, cool. Let's check it out. We'll talk to you in the next episode, Julie. This was great, and this is exciting. I can't wait to get to the next level for you.
Me neither. This is great. Thank you so much.
Why are our GPS trackers the best in the world? Because we fund you a minimum of $2,000 to buy your next vehicle if yours gets stolen. And we will also rent a vehicle for you for 15 days. Find out more at helitar.com.